So, hi guys, we have Mukund along with us who has scored an All India 48th rank this attempt. And congratulations, Mukund, to begin
Thank you
with.
so much, sir.
What was your knee jerk reaction?
Well, I opened the result website and I just looked for two words there. It was pass and pass, and that was it. I could not believe what had just happened. I was celebrating that moment, and it was something that I was looking forward to for around 5 years now. And then I called my parents, I spoke to my family, told them the individual marks, and suddenly while I was telling them the individual marks, I'm like, okay, this is 6 out of 8 exemptions. It should be close to a rank. And then I went back, I entered into the merit list, and I see I got a 48th rank. And first, I was like, okay, let me check this again. Is it my name? Is this my SRO number? Is it all correct? And is it actually a rank? Because it was truly unexpected. I knew I had performed, I had a good attempt, but I was not sure if I would get a rank. I never expected it. I was fairly confident of passing, but the rank just hit me really hard, and I really did not know what to do after that moment.
So, to begin with, he's saying that he was not expecting a rank, neither he knew about it. Only after some time, he was able to figure it out that the marks look good, right? So, and his total turns up to 541 to my knowledge.
Correct.
So, there are a lot of marks. Why you didn't even thought of a rank? I'm just wondering because anything above 500 or 510, it's worth a check in the merit list. Maybe too happy to accept.
Exactly. Yeah. Initially, I just by 541, I was just digesting the marks there. The fact that I'm a chartered accountant now, so it was just sinking in. That first fact was just sinking in, and then I'm like, okay, plus 500 plus, there might be a chance at the merit list, and I
because
gave it a shot.
every time I've met students in CA final, first thing they always say is that they were just looking at, fine, have I passed or not? So that is the first question that turns up to the mind. So big achievement, and scoring an all India rank is never a mean feat. So beyond that, now we would like to dig up a little bit into your past with respect to how the journey went, right from your CPT days to final. Can you just summarize it for our audiences?
Yeah, so it started with CPT. My preparation for that was honestly just for a week or two. And I had properly planned it out so that I get around 100, just around 100. Because in my 12th grade, I hadn't taken maths, and maths was something totally new in CPT. And because of how the exams went, my 12th board exams got over late. And then after that, I went out for a trip so that I could enjoy the 12th fever. And then after that, when I came back, my results came, I joined to Christ University, and then all of that happened. So I eventually ran out of time for preparing for CPT, and I had around a couple of weeks where I made sure I will like study a certain chapters in maths, crack law and economics, all of that, and I ended up getting an exact 100 in that exam.
Wonderful, exact 100
Yeah.
in CPT. So that may not be really awe inspiring, but that is a plan. At least I wouldn't recommend to anyone. It's really risky to study for 7 days, and that too without math stats and getting it there, nailing it with just exact 100. But I believe your IPCC or the intermediate attempt, which was May 18, was the first attempt of the new syllabus people of the intermediate, and you did fared really well in that one, apart from one blip here and there. So a little bit into that.
Yeah, so my intermediate attempt went fairly well actually, but all through the course of the preparation, I left one subject almost entirely, and that was IT. And I had never prepared for that subject. So even one day before that paper, I had only studied SM, and I'm like, IT, I really don't feel like studying, so I'll just give up. And I attempted only SM. My IT answer sheet would have gone maximum to 2 pages, and I ended up getting 24 in that. But overall, I got 456, which is more than the actual pass mark for all 8 subjects combined. So that really hit me a little hard because I had done really well. People who got scored maybe like 56 marks less than me would also end up clearing the.
It's a very bad feeling, but 456 was a very reasonable total, and obviously I always said to everyone that IT is one subject we cannot mess up with, audit is one subject we cannot mess up with, and that actually played a role in molding the way you prepared yourself for the finals.
Yeah, definitely. That had a very important role because that basically taught me not to give up during the exams. It's really important that I actually persist with it and I actually give my best shot because otherwise that regret will stay with me forever. And that really helped me during my CA final because there were a lot of moments in between where I felt like I would not be able to study, where I would not be able to crack certain subjects. And at that time, I reminded myself of my first intermediate attempt where I had actually cleared, like, scored more than the passing marks, but failed in that one subject. And I didn't want that to be repeated this time. And so I gave my best shot at
And you
all.
made sure that it doesn't even come close to being repeated. So, what was the scariest part in final, like something similar to ITSM?
Well, I was really scared about it. The subject, I was really scared of it, the vastness of it, and my preparation for it to the for major part was half baked almost, and I had to do something different so that I would actually be able to write that paper. Like forget like passing, just able to write around 60 marks, 70 marks, at least that much.
Oh my god.
So I started changing how I prepared for audit as such. So I started studying it every day, started revising what I studied the previous day. So I tried to keep in touch with that subject continuously so that I don't break that chain, and I always study it every day and get better at it like that. And I think eventually that paid off.
Wonderful. Because something that he's worried about, that he should be able to write it and then doing really well in the subject. And audit, must I say, it's really vast. Become at one point it becomes a bit of gray and generic. So, particular tips with respect to auditing.
Yeah, so audit, when I first started revising, what I felt like was I got stuck when I was doing standards of auditing. I just got stuck with that. I spent 7 to 10 days just on that in my first revision. And then I felt like I analyzed the past papers. I saw they ask for 15-20 marks for standards of auditing, but the other chapters cover the major portion. That's like 80 to 100 marks there itself. So I decided I will concentrate on the smaller chapters, do it well so that I can present it properly in the question paper. And the remaining time I would spend on standards on auditing.
Kind of an ABC analysis as to
Yeah.
what needs to be kept in the first drawer.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So,
Apart from that, I think even writing practice for audit is really important. Writing practice and also making, like, when after you've studied something, I make a chart of it. I try to figure out what I just studied. I try remembering it again. So I kept that going on.
writing practice is something which I've always told to my bunch of students, and he being part of the student in IPCC as well as final, I've always recommended write a lot of papers. So I'll come to that part where you have to share your strategy as to how you manage to, from 100 in CPT, very good marks in intermediate, but that one subject being almost undone, kind of undoing his entire effort, to the point scoring a rank in CA final. So that's quite some stuff for the biography. Now, so we'll come to that strategy part of it. But coming to your final marks card, and he has done exceptionally well in SFM. He has got how much? 85. And then his indirect tax has been equally thrilling. That's 74 to my knowledge.
Yeah.
So that is mind blowing, because I've seen a lot of All India rankers mark sheet and all. So scoring above that 80 and 90, it's a tough job in CF final, must I say. So now we'll get back to strategy, or maybe a small capsule on a subject by subject analysis as to how would you like to put it across, starting with group one. So you have to share your tips. You can't keep it to yourself. That is what I always say, that share it to your juniors and allow them enough of opportunity to understand as to what fits them best.
Okay, so if I start with FR, I think for FR the main thing is your study mat. Like mostly the paper comes right out of it. So you have to be thorough with it. Like you have to know all concepts, you have to know all the questions, you have to practice it multiple times, so it just gets ingrained in your head. And a lot of times, even in my attempt, the paper was majorly out of the study material itself. And what I did was in the first revision, I did all the questions. I would mark some stuff that would be difficult for me or little important that I felt was important. And my next few revisions, I would continue doing those specific questions. And that really helped me, I felt. And yeah, even for majors, some standards like 115, 109, I relied entirely on the study material for that, and I felt it was really helpful for that subject, FR in general.
FR is so vast, Mukund. At certain point in time, you would have felt that it's taking a toll on you. That is because what I generally see from the experience of all the students that I talk to, that at one point in time there's a lot of theory. 109 never seems to end, right? So how do you handle that emotional and, you can say, psychological pressure?
So once I did the subject the first time, I had got it clear in my head. It's impossible to be 100% like thorough with it. Like if I spend time on 109, I can spend days together and still not be done with that standard. It's that vast. So at some point you have to start prioritizing, and I felt like I wanted a general idea of that full chapter. Like I want to know, like, if something is asked out of the chapter, I'll be able to attempt it at least, and not try and get perfection in that chapter, which is something I feel is important to get rid of. Sometimes people have this thing of they want to be perfect in that particular topic, which is very hard sometimes in CA final, and you have to let go of that part of you, that where you want to be perfect with that, you sometimes cannot be perfect with it. So psychologically, I had to change that in my head. It was hard for me initially. I also tried to like properly crack that entire chapter, understand every concept in it, everything in it. But after a point, you have to get that it's not possible to be perfect in that, but you should know whatever is in it. Like you should have a fair idea of it, but perfection is not possible. And I had to let go of that.
Let go in order to reach. Right? That's
Yeah.
that's the idea. Now coming to the second subject, SFM.
SFM, I relied mostly on your notes and your questions. So first time I did, again I went full thorough. I did all the questions in it. Again, marked the important ones. Already you had given your 5-star rating, 4-star rating. So I kept all of that in mind. And so first time I did fully properly, and then the next time I went to the 3-star, 4-star, 5-star sums. I kept that going, and I also checked the study material, like because I did my classes around 2 years back, so there must have been some new additions. So I went to the study material. I tried and doing all the new sums in that. That was basically my preparation for SFM, and nothing else different that I did in that. I think I relied a lot on your questions for that.
Hope you did the self assessments,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because that is what I always say, that because it's nothing but kind of a revision, a backup kind of an idea. Once it is done in class, do self assessments, so you make sure that the concepts are solidified, and just go a little bit beyond the syllabus to ensure that the concept is rock solid. And that is what I always insisted, to go a little bit beyond the syllabus. And there's nothing wrong if you are able to understand a little bit beyond syllabus.
I think that was a constant even from Inter FM days. Whenever we do your classes, we already are exposed to difficult kind of sums, very difficult kind of sums. And when you eventually get back to the actual paper that ICA is giving, it's relatively easier for us because we've done higher level sums. And same thing I felt even with this SFM this time.
So wonderful. That is one thing. Now coming to the other two, the deadly two, the theory papers, how to manage it out.
Audit, as I said earlier, you have to start prioritizing standards and the other chapters. Other chapters are equally important, and if you spend time, they can also be scoring comparatively, and that will help. And with MCQs, the ICI material is also important because sometimes questions come straight out of that as well. And even because subject is so vast, if you go through the MCQ booklet one time and you see new kind of questions, just try and understand the logic behind that, and maybe similar questions will again come in the exam. Even if I don't have enough time to study the entire chapter of bank audit, this MCQ, the questions, the case studies, or anything specific that comes, I'll understand the logic of that. So if something similar comes, I can again crack it in the exam. There's no problem with that. That and writing practice, I think, is really important for our.
Writing practice and a lot of papers. That
Yeah.
is what he has done. Law, anything in specific?
So with law, I think they're increasing the economic law portions also. So you have to be thorough with those acts as well as the Company Act. And in Company Act, directors is a little more carries a little more weightage than the other parts. So yeah, well, after that is done, I felt like the remaining company law portions were relatively easier. So it takes a little less time to do the remaining portions. So I finished off the directors first, and then I did the remaining portions, and I again relied on a lot of charts because it's sometimes really difficult to remember these theory subjects. So and it is really hard. So you have to prepare your own notes, have charts so that you can remember it easily. So I remembered mostly from my charts. So I would go back in my head and I would think, okay, this would come here, that would come here. So it's just a chart type of memory. And one more thing with both audit and law, I I found it really difficult to sometimes study it on just on my own, like start reading and start doing stuff. So I relied sometimes on maybe some lecture that was there on YouTube or something like that. So it would play in the background, so I could hear it, and that would keep me in touch with it. Because if I'm studying and if I'm just reading on my own, I felt a little hard because there's sometimes really dry, and you just have to remember it, no matter what, how much you try to justify
You
about
have
it.
to remember it.
You have to remember it in the end. And ICI looks for those specific points
Keywords.
everywhere. So yeah, so when I couldn't study it on my own, I would sit in front of my laptop, play some lecture, listen to it, try and do my own things in between. So I did that a lot for alt and law, given how theoretical they were.
Wonderful. So that's some kind of a good plan. So, but you require a different level of concentration for playing it and reading it your own way. Now, coming to group 2, how about SCMP?
SCMP, I shifted just to the study mat for that. Only the study mat, because the study mat has a lot of stuff in it, and you have to be clear with all the subheadings that comes everywhere, the different types that come everywhere. So the study material had all of it there. And also, I think it's important for me also, I had to make that shift where everybody thinks it's practical, but it's actually a lot of theory.
Lot of theory. SCMP
Lot of
has
theory.
lot of theory.
You have to be thorough with your theory, because practical, even in my attempt, it came for very little marks, and it was just a sub part of a main question. The remaining part was still theory. So you cannot get away from theory in SCMP. In the beginning, I also thought it's just a practical subject, you can manage it. But when I started doing papers and when I started going through study mat, I understood how much of a theoretical importance is there in that. So I started doing more theory, and I relied mostly on the study mat for that as well. And I tried to remember all the subheadings, try to again, with theory, charts really helped me. So I would again make charts, and I would try to remember summarizing a chapter in maybe 3-4 pages, and then going through that part.
Wonderful. Then comes our elective. Which elective?
I had chosen economic laws, yeah.
And how did you manage it out?
Yeah.
This is a tricky business. Elective paper is a tricky business.
So elective, I had spent relatively less time compared to my other subjects. And so first what I did, I understood the main part of the chapters, and I revised that 2 or 3 times. And then I did the case study digest, which is very important for economic laws. Because in my attempt, around 3 of them came right out of the case study digest. And so you have to be thorough with all the 50 case studies they've given. So I went through all of them, prepared my own index where I know what case study is about what specific topic, and so that you can easily track it in the exam. That's also a really important part, because it's not just knowing what it is, you have to also figure out where in your book that is. So making that master index was really helpful for me in economic laws, and that 50 case study digest was very important.
I heard from quite a few students, whatever happens in that 4 hours, if you have an index at hand, a self-made index, right, not a borrowed one. So when you make that index and actually go through it, and maybe it makes your job much more simpler, and 4 hours are not enough.
Yeah, it's really not enough.
A lot of students are like that. Okay, fine, I have a lot of hours at hand. 1 hour I'll just chill through the book, and 3 hours I'll write. That's not happening.
Yeah, even my attempt, even though 3 of the case studies were right out of the book, but still it took me entire 4 hours to finish the 100-mark paper, and I already had an index with me, and I checked with all of that. Even then it took me 4 hours. So it's really important, that index.
So it functions as a good, decent cautionary line that do not take that paper very lightly, because it can just backfire big time. Coming to the last 2 big weeks, DT and IDT. DT being so vast, I wonder what he has to say on that.
DT was something before the papers, I felt fairly confident, but when I actually wrote my paper, and the 2 days is not enough. The 2 days before the exam for DT is actually, it's very hard to cover everything in those 2 days. And also, after writing 6 papers, I was so drained out mentally also. Felt it very hard to concentrate and study for DT, but somehow I just pulled through.
And in terms of vastness, DT is just huge.
It's huge. It
just doesn't seem to end.
Yeah, exactly. So I relied on whatever notes I had taken. So I stuck to that. If I go to study mat again, there'll be a lot more in that. And you have to again prioritize a little bit, because there are a lot of chapters which are there for hundreds of pages in the study mat, which they may never ask. And it's really important to prioritize it properly, because if you spend too much time on some small part, you may not be able to crack the major part. And one more thing is international taxation in DT, the paper. It's very important. 30 marks it comes, and you can cover the entire 30 marks before the exam. Like the day before exam, you are able to study the entire international taxation portion. But for direct tax, you cannot guarantee that you'll finish the entire syllabus in the one day. But with international tax, you can be sure about finishing that. So I finished international tax first, and then remaining time I spent entirely on DT. And I found that helpful because the international tax part, even though the paper was difficult, the international tax part was still relatively easier, and that's where I think I ended up scoring a little more compared to.
And DT paper, in your attempt,
It was.
it's an open secret that it was pretty on the difficult side. Coming to IDT,
Yeah, so IDT again. So with my faculty had given me the start book, which was really helpful for me for revision. So again, after DT, I was actually down, and I didn't feel like studying in that day. So I let myself go that day, and the next morning I started, and I had a lot of charts again. So IDT also is quite a lot, even though it's relatively simpler. It's still a lot. You have to cover a lot of syllabus even in that. Yeah, and so I had the start books, which was what I relied on mostly, and I studied basically from that. And even here, the customs FTP part is again scoring. It's relatively smaller. You can finish it within this 1.5 days, and then you can actually score in that part. And so yeah, again, little more customs and FTP. I did it properly, and IDT whatever I could, I did my best in that.
wonderful. So that's quite a quick recap and an in-depth recap at the same time. Now, coming to one important thing that I've always stated, papers. So a brief minute or two on how paper practice was so important part of your entire strategy.
Yeah, so back in Inter itself, sir had given us the strategy of solving 2 papers every day and then just reviewing whatever you got wrong in those papers or whatever you could not attempt in those papers. So I decided to carry the same thing to CA final as well. And so while I was doing, not only do you remember your concepts better, you understand how to deal with such situations during exams. Like I've had practice papers where I had no clue what to write for 3 hours, but I wrote for 100 marks and I ended up getting getting it evaluated for around 50, 55, which is what gave me the confidence that even if the paper is tough, you give your best shot, you might actually still end up scoring decent marks. And that was something I felt was very important, dealing with exam-like situations during practicing for that, and I think it's really important.
So papers and papers, that's applicable for you as well and for everyone, because at the end of the day you have to fight out a paper, not a particular concept. So a lot of people are concept driven during revision time. तो तब क्या कर रहे थे? My question is very simple. तो तब क्या कर रहे थे? अगर concept अभी पढ़ना है last minute पे, तो भाई वो काम classroom में हो जाना चाहिए था, because that is what I did in classrooms. We had BSM discussion going on for almost 2.5-3 hours. Right? It actually stretched from one day to the next day. It spilled over, which is generally a 15-minute time frame work. I took something around 3.5 hours, and we had our own entire mathematics, statistics teared wide open, and we learnt every bit of it. So वो क्लास में करना है. एग्जाम के टाइम पेपर करने हैं, क्योंकि एट द एंड ऑफ द डे क्या होता है, आई हैड वेरी सिंपल थिंग टोल्ड टू दीज पीपल दैट हाँ, मेरे सब्जेक्ट की अगर मैं बात करूं तो फॉरेक्स है भाई, फॉरेक्स आपने किया एक साथ 5 सम हो जाएंगे, because you have learned certain mechanism how to solve it, but then you jump to derivatives, then you jump to portfolio. एग्जाम में तो जंबल्ड अप ही पूछने वाले हैं. They are not going to ask you with the heading chapter wise, भैया ये security valuation का है. So that's when you do a paper, you know to switch gears.
Yeah.
Across subjects and across different topics within the same subject. So that has always caught my attention, that switching yourself between different papers or different topics within the paper is going to give you a lot of traction going ahead.
Yeah, and not only that, some questions are sometimes very repetitive. So if you cover like 5-10 papers, you know, a lot of it might come just out of those papers.
तो 20-30 मार्क तो आपके बकेट में वहां मिल गए, और बाकी आपकी प्रैक्टिस और थोड़ा कॉन्सेप्ट जो आपने किए थे. So last minute flipping paper revision is the last thing you should do, because the more you write, the more you remember. And Mukund has a habit as लिखा तो ही याद रहेगा types.
Yeah, that's when I get my confidence. If I write something down, is when I get my confidence, and I really worked on that.
So that was so wonderful, and what can I say? You have to work hard. Inspiring story. Barring the fact that you shouldn't do what he did in CPT, right? A very risky strategy to work on, right? Because nowadays it's foundation, but obviously don't think like that. हाँ मैं last minute में, because I've taught him from a pretty young age. So last 4-5 years we know. So there is some exceptional qualities. It's not after the rank that I'm saying. I know these people since long time. So he's one with some bit of exceptional quality. So I always say, do not try to get inspired from others' idea. See what works in your framework. Like in previous interview with Anirudh again in AIR and CA final, he had a habit of typing stuff, typing theory questions. I cannot digest it, right? Though it worked for him and it is brilliant. एक सबका अपना अपना क्वर्की मैकेनिज्म होता है. जैसे इसका मैकेनिज्म अभी मैंने सुना, थ्योरी लेक्चर्स प्लेइंग इन द बैकग्राउंड और ये भाई साहब आराम से पढ़ रहे हैं. मुझसे कहो, मुझसे नहीं होगा भाई. मैं तो सीधे पुराने जमाने का आदमी. सो आई हैव माय ओन थॉट प्रोसेस. भाई एक रूम बंद किया, बत्ती जलाई उसके ऊपर, भाई लैंप है, मार्क कर रहे हैं, नोट बना रहे हैं बच्चे की तरह. So that is my way. So do not try to ape someone's mechanism. That's always the warning, right? That's the cautionary warning that I would like to give to everyone. But yes, there's a lot of inspiring stuff. Chart बनाए, right? Practice करना, जैसे audit की बात की उन्होंने, कि रोज practice करनी चाहिए. जो you will find something very similar in Anirudh's interview also, that audit repeat करना या theory subjects को regularly एक बार रोज सुबह उठ के maybe given half an hour, 1 hour, so that ensures that repetition is the key. Always say repetition is the key. Class work करो, वैसे ही some homework में करो, फिर एक बार practice करो, then it solidifies. So wonderful wrap up of tips and from Mukund, directly coming from the AIR, and so happy for him. The kind of effort that he had put during especially last 4-5 months, exceptional. And what can I say? Once more, big congratulations. Anything as a parting note that you have to say?
Just don't give up. It's very easy to just give up. Like multiple times, even during the exams, I felt like really just giving up. But you have to keep yourself going at that time. Because if you give up, it's over. It's regret then. You will regret this later. But if you stick through it and you just give your best shot, like even if I would not have got what I've gotten as a result, I would still be happy because I put my best shot there. So yeah, just don't give up and keep persevering and you will get through.
Wonderful. Never give up is the idea. It's very easy to give up. What wonderful lines he has told. It's very easy to give up. ये नहीं करना है, ये कल कर लेंगे, ये देख लेंगे, right? Is very easy to do. It's difficult to show fortitude. नहीं हो रहा है फिर भी करना है, करते रहना है. That's the idea. वो छोड़ दो कि रिजल्ट क्या आएगा. It's never any which ways. That was never the idea कि हाँ भाई रैंक ही लाना है types. Give your 100%. Always say that when you give your 100%, one great thing happens to you. You can sleep peacefully at night without regret. Right? So that is very necessary. क्योंकि आपको तकिया लगा, हाँ बस नींद आ गई, मैंने पूरा दिन अच्छे से यूटिलाइज किया. That is one very important thing that hard work provides. Right? चलिए, we are parting ways, and maybe we'll be back, and we will be back in few days. Right? So best of luck to all of you, and Mukund, we bid farewell and wish you all the best for your life.
Thank you so much.